Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in to episode 1 of the Defend and Carry podcast, your weekly round of news for personal defense and the culture of concealed carry lifestyle. Today on the show, we have a very special guest, a good guy with a gun, who in the midst of a 6-lane highway on the day after Christmas had to draw his concealed firearm to save the life of a complete stranger. I'm your host, Rob Russo. We got one in the chamber. Let's get started. You're listening to the Defend and Carry podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Aaron Kreag, a concealed weapon carrier who is going to share with us his incredible story about something we all train for, having to draw a weapon defensively to save a life, and the consequences of drawing a weapon defensively in public. Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you very much. Nice to be here.
All right, Aaron, so let's set the stage. Before we jump right in as to what happened, I want to give our listeners kind of the opportunity to visually put themselves in your situation. So tell us, set the scene for us. Tell us about the time of day, what the weather was like, what the traffic was like, and, what kind of neighborhood generally that you were driving through when this happened, whether it be, was it a good neighborhood, a bad neighborhood kind of thing?
Okay, yes, this was Friday, December 26th, day after Christmas, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was clear and sunny out. Spring temperatures here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The city that we were in is called Southlake. It's probably one of the more affluent towns or zip codes in the state of Texas. Very suburban-esque, with no crime. Tons of soccer bombs and, that kind of thing.
Right.
And so, I was with my wife. We were traveling east down a farm to market road, which is, kind of like a state highway here.
Let me stop you right there. Just I want to recap here for people listening. So it's the day after Christmas. All right. It's sunny out. You said it was somewhat unusually warm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're taking this night drive, middle of the day, headed to the movies, and you're driving through what is normally considered a pretty affluent area of Texas, of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so you're not expecting. I mean, this is the last thing in your mind to be thinking that something is going to happen, or this is you're going to be put in a situation where you're going to need to draw your gun.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I carry daily, and my kind of default expectation is that, I'm going to be a victim of road rage, or somebody's going to try to carjack me, or I'm going to be in the bank and somebody's going to hold the bank up while I'm in there. That kind of scenario. Was definitely not expecting the scenario that I came upon.
So let's continue with that. So tell us what happened. Describe what you saw and how you initially reacted.
So the wife and I were driving along. We're in the in the far inside lane of this 3 lanes in each direction, so it's a 6-lane road. We're on the far inside lane. I need to turn left at the stoplight that's a block or 2 ahead of me. And anyway, we're driving along, and as we're coming down the road, there's a small red SUV on the far right-hand side of the road, actually in a in a right-hand turn lane, that you would pull into to slow down to turn into a retail space. And so the vehicle was stopped completely, no hazards on. The driver's side door was ajar, completely wide open. And the thing that really caught my eye was that there were personal belongings flying out the passenger side window. Jacket, shirt, purse, another shirt, there's all these effects flying out the side of this car. And, we're driving along, and I used to be a paramedic. I think I've got this kind of heightened level of awareness when I'm out and about. And I told my wife, I said, what in the hell's going on over there? And she's like, I don't know. And I said, maybe somebody's having a medical emergency. I had really thought that maybe somebody was choking or having a heart attack or something, or a seizure. And, that was what all the commotion was about. And so I had, in preparation for pulling, eventually passing this vehicle, I had rolled the passenger side window down in my car, and I had started slowing down, while my wife and I were looking. She was had her phone in her hand, and, I told her, hey, get ready to call 911, and, if I have to, I'll jump out and help. And so, so we're slowing, and as we get to kind of I don't know, we're probably on a 45-degree angle to this car. We then see the gentleman, the driver, turned to his right and just punching closed fist the female passenger. And it was just a flurry of strikes, just left, right, left, right, left, right.
Wow.
And it was kind of like I was like, oh my God, like what in the hell? It was the polar opposite of what I was expecting to see. And so before my car was stopped, and before we were, directly to the left of them, the driver had been kind of postured up over the center console, and was just, and by this time the lady in the passenger seat was slumped down, partially defending her face with her left arm, and just screaming bloody murder. Like the blood curdling screams that you hear in the movies. I mean, that's what she was doing over there. And this guy's postured up and just raining down these right elbows onto her, onto her back of her head and back of her neck. And he was doing them, he was heavy and it was rapid. And, my initial thought was, geez, this guy's trying to kill this lady.
Yeah.
And so, I told my wife, I said, I think that guy's trying to kill that lady. Call 911. I threw the car in park. She gets on the phone with 911, and I just exited the vehicle. And it was almost instantaneous. It was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It was like, wow, I think this guy's trying to kill the lady. I need to do something. And it was just boom. And so that's what I ended up doing.
So let me stop you there before we go any further. Now, were there other cars around? Was there other traffic? Did anybody else stop? Was there anyone else outside on the side of the road maybe witnessing what was happening? Or were you kind of the first person on the scene, so to speak, to see this taking place?
That's the crazy part, is there were people driving by in front of me, right? This was a day after Christmas. The 2 blocks ahead of us was basically the largest, most affluent kind of shopping area in this region, right? It's a place called South Lake Town Center. And, everybody's going there to do their returns and exchanges and, buy stuff on sale. The roads were packed in both directions. And people had been driving past, just ignoring what was going on. And so, nobody had stopped. Now, when I stopped and I, eventually got out of the car with my firearm, then traffic stopped. Traffic stopped. But nobody had stopped to help. It was pretty embarrassing, in all honesty.
And it's as you were explaining the violence that you saw this man just raining down on this victim. I thought how in America, for the most part, I think Americans are pretty fortunate to some degree that we don't often witness those kinds of things in real life. We see it on television, we see it on movies. But to see that level of violence with our own eyes is something I think a lot of people go through their entire life, fortunately never having to witness. But it's terrifying. I think when you see that raw violence taking place in front of you, a lot of people, just kind of that fight or flight instinct kicks in. And since we're so not used to seeing that in our daily lives, I think a lot of people, just want to get away from it as quickly as possible, lest they get dragged into it as well. Now, when you jumped out of the car, did your wife say anything to you? Did she try to stop you?
Oh gosh, no, no. Well, her question was, "Do you have your gun, honey?"
Okay, so she was all behind you on that. She was glad you were getting out and trying to do something.
Yeah, yeah. My wife's a badass. I mean, she carries too. She's a school teacher. She grew up on a farm. She knows my background and
Right.
history and training and everything. So,
Okay.
and my personality, right? I mean, I'm the guy that, I stop to help people, change a flat tire or jump a car or, help somebody, cross the street or,
Right.
I just kind of got that spirit. So she's kind of used to me intervening. Yeah.
And we could go on and talk probably for a long time about how that was, the typical way that people normally would have responded in yesteryear. You mentioned the things you do, helping people with a flat tire, just getting involved when you find a neighbor or someone else who could use some assistance. Unfortunately, today, for whatever reason, as like I said, we can probably go on and talk about this for hours as to why it is. But today people just seem to be so detracted from doing that. They don't want to talk to other people. They don't want to get involved in situations, and it's great to see that there are still people like yourself out there looking for an opportunity to help somebody when they need help and getting involved. And especially in this case, I mean, you probably saved someone's life. So it is great to hear that there are still some people out there who care, about their neighborhood and their surroundings and their, people in general, because it's tough. And in this particular case, this woman has definitely benefited from your help. So let's take it from where you had left. You left off. You got out of the car, and I assume, did you give a warning first, or did you immediately pull your gun out and then give a warning after that?
No. I, as I had exited the car, I had immediately drawn the firearm and went around the back side of my car. And, I was kind of offset. I was off the vehicle probably, I don't know, 10 feet, 10 feet off the side of the car and about 10 feet behind my car. So, in my mind, I'm thinking, if something pops off here, there's two issues. One, I don't want my wife to be in the line of fire. And two, I couldn't square up to the guy, without his victim being in the line of fire.
Right.
So the angles were a little, the angles were funny. And, but yeah, I mean, I came around and, there were a couple of cars that had driven through the scene, if you will, but, for the most part, everybody came to a screeching halt in both directions. And, I immediately came up on target on him while he was in the act of beating her, and started, yelling commands, stop attacking. And I was loud. I mean, I lost my voice for a day after that. I felt like I was back in the Army.
Right.
But, and it caught his attention, and he looked over his shoulder at me. And initially he looked over his shoulder, and I got this impression like he was, fixing to get out of the car and, want to box with me. But I think it took him, there was a delayed onset. Like, it was kind of like like, what the hell is this guy doing talking shit to me?
Right.
And then he saw the gun.
Yeah.
And, once he saw the firearm fully extended, then he had to change it. His demeanor changed a little bit. He turned then, and I'm yelling commands at him, let me see your hands, get out of the vehicle right now. Let me see your hands, get out of the vehicle, get on the ground. I need you to get out of the vehicle and get on the ground. I mean, I was, this whole time I'm barking commands at him at gunpoint, and he's turned now, completely facing me. And he's kind of sitting half saddle, if you will, on his driver's seat with one foot on the street, 1 foot on the floor of his car, that kind of thing, right? He's kind of half in, half out of his car facing me now. And, I thought he was trying to work up the guts to rush me. That was the impression. That was my gut feeling at the time. And he was being verbally belligerent to me, yelling things like, who the F do you think you are? Don't point that effing gun at me, bro. This kind of thing, like kind of, I don't know, talking shit for lack of better terms.
Okay, Aaron, let me stop you right there for a second. We're going to take a quick break and come right back.
Alien Gear Holsters, the most comfortable and concealable holsters on the planet, is offering big savings with our new 2-holster combo. Now you can buy 2 complete holsters for as little as $49.88. Choose from any available holster styles and colors for the guns of your choice. All of Alien Gear's quality products are made right here in the USA and include a 30-day trial, forever warranty, and free shell trades for life. Visit aliengearholsters.com today.
He's still raging, so to speak, at this point. I mean, he was obviously in a rage as he was beating this woman, and then you've come from behind him because he's in the car and put your weapon, your firearm, and you give him commands to stop attacking, and his initial response to you is just, he's still raging. He looks at you and he's not happy that you're pointing a firearm at him, and instead of just complying, you got the sense that he was trying to work up the courage to jump out of the car and come at you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he was raging. I mean, he was, his respiratory pattern, his body language. I mean, his eyes were, huge. As big as saucers, and he's just.
How long did that go on before he calmed down, or was he like that all the way up until the police arrived?
No, he, my wife, when I had exited the car, she said, "Did you have your gun, honey?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, I'm calling 911." So she was on the phone dispatch, and she's, yelling out the passenger side window at me and telling me, dispatch has been notified. They say that the cops are on the way. That kind of thing. When I'm interacting with him, it was probably for about 30 seconds or so. It was just like a standoff at the OK Corral. I mean, it was tense. I mean, I really thought, I was just waiting. I was waiting. He had on a loose fitting basketball shorts and a very loose fitting T-shirt. I could tell, I didn't see any weapons, and I didn't really think that he was going to brandish a weapon. The guy was from Nigeria, and so he had a very horrible accent. So there was also, which I've never actually told anybody before, but I'm barking orders at him, and he's yelling back at me. And there were times when I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if this guy's understanding me, and they speak English there.
Yeah.
But
the accent is very thick.
It's horrible, very thick, and he's yelling back at me. And there were times when I'm sitting there going, "Wait, what did he just say?"
Right.
And so it was very tense. And finally, he started screaming at me. He's screaming really loud. What the F do you want me to do? What the F do you want me to do? Like he's getting, he's like, losing it on me, right? And I'm telling him, I'm like, look, just get out of the car, man. Get on the ground. Get out of the car. Get on the ground. Get out. And he's like, you're going to shoot me. You're going to shoot me, And so finally, at some point I'm thinking, all right, well, this is ridiculous. There were, I mean, I kid you not, there had to have been 100 bystanders now at this point, right? So there were people in stopped cars sitting there. There were people in stopped cars that had gotten out of their car. There were people that were in surrounding parking lots, surrounding businesses that had come outside, and I'm looking around. I could see, there were times when I'm kind of like watching my six and look, kind of keeping tabs on my surroundings. And every time I kind of did a quick check, there were, people had multiplied.
Yeah. And so all of this has happened in a span of like a minute and 2 minutes. I mean, from the moment you saw the action taking place in the vehicle to stopping, getting out, drawing your firearm, and then it turned into this surreal scene with hundreds of people, stopping what they're doing and watching this take place.
Yeah. And from the time that my wife called 911 to the time that police arrived was like, I don't know, it was like 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes 45, something like that.
Wow.
It was just under 3 minutes, but it felt like an eternity.
Now, did she tell them ahead of time that you had gotten out of the vehicle and that you had drawn your weapon on this gentleman?
She did.
Okay.
But that's for let's touch base on that in a little while because there's actually an interesting point to make with that.
Okay.
Eventually what ended up happening with him is, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I got this kind of rush of being horribly uncomfortable, right? I'm now in the middle of a 6-lane road in suburbia with 100 observers, with a firearm fully extended, on a guy who I can't understand, who is, brutally beating what I thought was his wife, but I think it was a live-in girlfriend. But, it was just it kind of caught up with me, right?
Sure.
It was like this kind of, the initial threat, i.e. him elbowing her in the back of the head and neck, i.e. that deadly threat was over. That had been, interrupted or mitigated or whatnot. But now I'm in this spot where, okay, what now? Right?
Right.
We don't train for that, right? We don't, we go to the range, we shoot a paper, we do, force on force, but it's always bad guy pulls a gun, we pull our gun, there's a shootout, somebody gets killed, or whatever, and then, scenario's over.
Right.
It was never pull your gun on this guy. Turns out he doesn't have a firearm, but he's trying, the deadly weapon is his elbow. And now he's confronting me. Now he's enraged with me. Now I'm out here on suburbia. I mean, it was, looking back in hindsight, I'm just like, oh my gosh, there was a lot of things could have gone wrong. He ended up finally complying, getting on the ground and proning out next to the car on the street.
Okay.
And I, and he was still yelling at me. And so I told him, I said, look, we need to, I'm thinking to myself, this needs to be de-escalated a bit. And I told him, I said, look, I'm not going to shoot you. I'm not going to shoot you. Just don't do anything stupid. Don't pull a weapon on me. Just stay still, relax till the police come and they'll sort it all out. And, he was like, I don't believe you. You have a gun. You're going to kill me. And I said, look, I'm not going to kill you. And, I'm like, and finally I said to him, I said, look, I put my finger on the trigger index, and I told him, I kind of pulled the firearm back just a little bit, and then I lowered the muzzle down towards the street level, off of him, just kind of, in the general vicinity of the road. And I told him, I said, look at my hand, look at the gun right now, look at my hand and look at my finger. My finger is not on the trigger. I said, my finger is not on the trigger. I'm not gonna shoot you. And it was kind of this thing, and he, we went back and forth. And,
so you're having this argument, with 100 people standing around watching, traffic stop in the middle of the 6-lane highway, with a gentleman who's on the ground rather, arms and legs, I'm assuming, stretched out. And you said, looking back, this has got to be very surreal for you to imagine you were in this situation that you found yourself in, with a gun drawn on somebody and them yelling back at you, and just in this spot you never could have imagined something like this would ever take place.
Yeah. Newfound respect for law enforcement.
Right. As you mentioned, you go to the range and we train for a lot of different scenarios, and but this particular type of thing, you couldn't have possibly really ever imagined what happened to me, because you're essentially at this point acting as a form of public law enforcement, because this woman needed somebody to intervene and save her life, and here you are, and of course you probably could never have imagined that this is a way that you would use your firearm, to stop somebody in the middle of the road and hold them until law enforcement arrived because, as you mentioned, that's not one of those scenarios that many people train for.
Right.
So he got on the ground, and you lowered your weapon a little bit to take the threat of shooting him away, that fear away from him, and then the police arrived shortly thereafter.
Yeah, he. So, they came probably. Oh, I don't know. It was probably another 30 seconds to a minute after that. And they came in mass. There's probably 6 squad cars. They came from all different directions. But they had, when, my wife was telling me, yeah, they're coming. And I'm thinking, man, these guys can't come fast enough. I'm thinking, I just want to get out of this situation.
Every second probably felt like a minute.
Yeah. It was, I didn't get that, speaking of felt like a minute, we can talk about that too if you want. I mean, that whole perception and space-time and manual dexterity, tunnel vision and all that, that's a whole nother interesting conversation. But, for me, when they were, as law enforcement was coming, I'm in a weird situation. I'm thinking, all right, what do I do here? This is another scenario where you don't train for. And I thought to myself, okay, if I'm the responding officer, how would I want, what would I want to see? And so I made the decision to go from a full extension to a compressed high ready position. And I was thinking that as the officers were coming, that they would see my body position and see that I was in a compressed high ready stance, and that hopefully look at me and go, okay, that dude's got some experience. He looks like an officer, or he looks like he's got some training. So, hopefully they're going to look at me and go, all right, he's, potentially not a threat. You don't know, you don't know until it's all sorted, but
that's what you hope for.
I was trying. Right, exactly. And so sure enough, I went to this, I compressed, and the law enforcement officers got out. They got outdrawn, and they were out yelling commands. Put your gun on the ground, put your hands up, get on the ground. So they're now barking orders at everybody, at both me and him. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to move really slowly and very purposefully. So and you could see that in part of the video. I start bending down. I'm very slow and deliberate, and I put the firearm on the floor and raise my hands up and turn to them and get on my knees and do the whole arrest procedure. So I got proned out, and my gun got kicked by the rookie.
He saw too many movies.
Which is that's the one thing that irritates me is $1,200 handgun that got scratched up by a rookie. But so they ended up doing the whole thing. They ended up cuffing me and putting me in the squad car and all that. But after about 10 minutes or so, once they ran my credentials, and I guess I should also mention that as the officers were coming drawn on me, I did look over my left shoulder, and the only thing that I could eke out was, I'm a CHL holder.
Okay.
And that was the only thing that I could get out. It was so weird. I was kind of I felt kind of paralyzed to, I'm like, I don't want to move. I don't want to speak. I don't want to get shot. So I don't want to do anything,
All right, we're going to stop there for today, but be sure to tune in tomorrow to finish hearing the rest of Aaron's story and learn what happens next in the aftermath of this incident. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. This podcast is sponsored by Alien Gear Holsters. For the most comfortable and concealable holsters available, check out aliengearholsters.com. And as always, defend and carry.